Hello. It is that time of year where we need to talk about paying for college for our seniors. This should be a overview presentation. I'll try to keep it short and sweet about different ways for paying for college. So this is ideally for seniors and families. So what I like to advise students on, just to try to keep things simple, is the financial aid, the big four. So these are the four things that I recommend every single student complete as soon as possible. So these are kind of those gotta be's. These are the things you need to do. And then we'll talk about optional things as well. So the first one is the FAFSA. So the reason that we're sending out this presentation today is because it's October 1st. This is the first day that the FAFSA opens for our seniors. So that's the federal application for financial student aid, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. We also recommend the Florida financial aid application. This application includes the Bright Future Scholarship. We also recommend the Education Foundation Scholarship and the Santa Fe College Scholarship Foundation. We'll talk about each of these in this presentation. So just to kind of compare all of them, so the FAFSA, these are kind of just some quick facts about each one. So the FAFSA is government funding. The money can be used anywhere in the country. You're not kind of restricted just into Florida. It is income based, so they use the family income to determine the need. There's grants, which is free money. You do not have to repay that, but there's also loans. So they can also provide loans, which would require repayment. There's also grants, not necessarily for income based, but for first generation college students, which means that neither parent has a degree from a post-secondary institution. So no AA degree, no bachelor's degree or beyond. These would be grants so that the students can pursue an education after high school. The Florida financial aid application is specifically for Florida. So all of our lottery money is kind of going into this pot for scholarships and grants. So the state of Florida has 14 different scholarships and grant programs. Again, this includes Bright Futures. So none of these require repayment. However, they must be used in Florida schools and no income information is needed. So some of them are very specific. Some of them, like Bright Futures, is more of an academic scholarship. So as long as you meet the academic requirements, you would get it. But then there's also some that are very specific to potential like historical events or cultural backgrounds. So we'll talk about that. And then the foundation scholarships. So these are very specific to Alachua County, right? So you've got the Education Foundation and Santa Fe College. So what that means is, again, pot of money just sitting at these institutions, these foundations, where it tries to make it easy for the student. You only have to fill out one application, and then they will kind of look at your application to see what are you eligible for based on all the options in their foundation. So again, one application. So the requirements and the awards will vary, but the good news is you don't have to worry about all that stuff. You just need to fill out the application, and then the people on the other side of that application kind of do the rest of the work. But part of the application is that you have to complete, general questions. There are essays. They require letters of recommendation and a resume. So those are things to just start thinking about and looking towards now. And again, no income information will be required for these. All right, so let's start off with the FAFSA. I do have a link here for a helpful resource that will go over more details. But again, trying to keep things simple in this presentation. The steps that I recommend are that the first thing that each student and parent does is create an FSA ID. This ID is linked to your social security number. So the parent might already have an FSA ID. A lot of parents forget it. So you just need to go in and do forgot ID. Again, it's linked to your social security number. Typically, it's linked to an email address or a phone number. So if you have an older student that you've done this for, you probably have one. If you yourself applied for the FAFSA at some point in your life, you have an ID. and then the student will create their own FSA ID. So I recommend you save this information in a folder somewhere. So then once the IDs are created, the student can create their FAFSA application. So the student would go in, create the FAFSA. You use your ID to log into the FAFSA. There's like demographic information that the student will complete. And then there's a section for the parent to complete income information. What I really like, they have a feature to link your IRS information. So instead of having your tax paperwork available where it says enter the number from line, 1B, you can actually just click link to IRS. There's some sort of information you have to plug in. It will link the information, done. So I definitely recommend that. And then the student will submit the FAFSA. So both parent and student will need to put in their IDs again as your electronic signature. It gets submitted. And then once it's all been reviewed, the student will receive a financial aid report to their email. This can be it will tell you if you're eligible for grants or loans. So it's really important to kind of keep that in mind, the difference between grants and loans. Most people will receive loan offers, but please educate your students that loans do require repayment. Okay, a few tips for completing your FAFSA application. To use a personal email, not a school issued email. The school issued emails are restricted on what comes in. So if you use that, you might not get that financial aid report issued to you, as well as the fact that when you graduate, you will not have access to that email anymore. So please use a personal email for completing the FAFSA. So students have to have a social security number to complete the FAFSA, but a parent does not. So if the parent does not have a social security number, you have to enter all zeros when it's asked. Again, I've already explained that you might already have an ID if you're the parent. So kind of get that organized before you even start the application. Let's see. Oh, in the application, you'll have to add schools. I recommend that you add all the schools that you're planning to apply to, because when you apply to the schools, they will have access to your FAFSA, which could also increase an award amount that the school wants to offer you. So the FAFSA is federal money that is used to help students pursue post-secondary education. However, the schools may also have money that they want to offer you based on their own circumstances and then based on your income. So it does help to include the schools in the application as long as you're planning to apply to those schools. And of course, the sooner you apply, the better. There's a big push on October 1st because it's the first day that it opens. And so we do want to encourage you to apply as soon as possible and just get it out of the way. And another tip is that there will be 2 applications on the website. So the 21-22 application, I recommend everyone just do it because it's technically will include the summer of 2022. So that's the summer after the seniors graduate. A lot of students will start in the summer. So you want to go ahead and get that on file, but then go ahead and also do the 22-23 application because that's going to be for that August 2022 start date. And so typically if you do the first one, most of your information should be able to transfer to the next one. So go ahead and get both applications done at the same time. All right, the next gotta be, is the Florida financial application. So again, like I said, it's 14 different programs and scholarships. I have them listed here. And if you go to their website, it will give you all the details about each one. I think the most common one that students are attempting to receive is the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. So we are planning to have all students apply for this no matter what, just in case, because you really don't know what you might be eligible for. It's a reasonably easy application. It doesn't require any parent information. So specifically on Bright Futures, it does open October 1st as well. The application for seniors will close on August 31st. I encourage students to apply even before you meet the requirements, because they're constantly receiving information from the school about your grades and your test scores. So you don't have to meet all the requirements first, then apply. You can go ahead and apply now. All that is saying, I would like to be considered for this scholarship. And then they actually won't even technically evaluate you until they receive your final transcript. So because technically you're not eligible until you finish all your credits and you graduate. So we're actually going to have I think it's October 14th, we plan to have an open lab at school all day where senior teachers through their English classes can send seniors in to fill out this application. All right, so we will send your records. You don't have to worry about sending records, but you do have to apply. I encourage you to review the handbooks. They have very detailed handbooks about eligibility, how to apply, and then also how to renew the scholarship. That's a big one. A lot of students forget that there's going to be a renewal process. So even though you're eligible right out of high school for Bright Futures, you also have to maintain a college GPA to continue receiving Bright Futures. So it's not a guaranteed 4-year scholarship. You do have to renew every semester. And then the other thing is that Bright Futures can only be used in Florida schools. And of course, the value of it will change between a private and a public institution. You'll end up getting more school paid for if you go to a public school versus a private school. Okay, let's move on to the foundation scholarships. So the Education Foundation is strictly, it's exclusively Alachua County, which is great. So basically, there's tons of scholarships out there, and some of the scholarships, they don't want to, instead of having their own application, they have actually given the scholarship to the Education Foundation to manage it. So the foundation has a list of scholarships on their website, and this website's on here. So you can look at all the scholarships, but the good thing is you only have to apply once, and then they will decide which one you are eligible for and offer you that scholarship. So things to keep in mind is that it usually opens up in January and closes in February. So you typically only have about a month to complete the application. The awards will vary. So again, there might be one scholarship for $500. There's also a Venture Afar scholarship that can be used out of state. I think it's up to $40,000. So they're going to usually determine what's the highest award you'll be eligible for. But so this is just something to bookmark, that in January, you're going to want to look for this scholarship. You can also go ahead and get ready for it now, because I'm letting you know now they will require a resume and letters of recommendation. So you can go ahead and get those started now. And the letters of recommendation, you will be giving them the email address of the recommender. So you don't have to have them in hand. You just have to know who will be your recommender and make sure they agree to it and that they're ready for it. Because all you're going to need to do is put their email address in, and then the recommender will send in the letter. All right. And now the Santa Fe College Foundation. Now, this is strictly for Santa Fe College, right? So as opposed to the Education Foundation, those scholarships can typically be used anywhere, but the Santa Fe College Scholarship Foundation can only be used at Santa Fe College. Now, I still recommend every student complete it because it opens in January, closes in February, but a lot of students don't know where they're going to college until after February, which is after the deadline passes. So it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and fill it out as a backup. Also, you might get into your number one school, but find out that Santa Fe College is willing to give you some more money. So it actually might be financially better to go to Santa Fe College first and then transfer to that number one school that you picked. So I just definitely include this in the top 4 definitely do scholarships. So again, it is very similar to the other ones, so you don't have to do a lot of extra work. Okay, so again, opens January, closes February. They have to be used at Santa Fe College, but you will still need that resume, still need the letter of recommendation. So you can just kind of copy and paste most of the information to this one. But the other kind of catch, though, is you also do have to apply to the college first. So Again, it doesn't hurt to have, if whether this is your first choice or a backup plan, like it doesn't hurt to have this application on file. It's free. It's pretty simple. And it can give you more resources again for the future. So I definitely recommend you complete this application as well. So for those who are after, and I always tell students this too, like I have students ask me about scholarships all the time. I highly, highly, highly recommend you make sure that you get those 4 done, definitely. But then there are plenty of other places to get scholarships. Now they're more time consuming, and there's no guarantee. They're more competitive because most scholarships tend to be national. So you're competing with people all over the country. But there are some that are more localized. I recommend you keep an eye out on our school website. We have a database that we keep scholarships updated on. There's also a scholarship board in our guidance office that we try to keep updated, where we add paper applications to the folders so that students can kind of grab, and we try to update those every month. But local scholarships, you have a better chance of getting. So like Clay Electric every year has $1,000 scholarship. You have to be serviced through Clay Electric, but it's $1,000 every year. It's guaranteed to one student at Santa Fe. We also have an Aurora Legacy Scholarship that's guaranteed to a student at Santa Fe. So you want to keep an eye out for those local ones. There's a better shot at getting the money. But then here's a couple other just websites that we really like. There's Going Merry and then studentscholarships.org. Those are websites you create an account and you put in information about yourself, and then they'll help you find personalized scholarships that you're eligible for. And again, you get to put your time into these as much as you want. So these are optional for those go-getters who really want to put the time in to look for more. All right, and that is it. I will be adding more resources to the email attached to this video, but if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email your counselor at the school. And thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day.